Let's do this. Let's do this. The Cult of Hockey podcast by the faithful and for the faithful. I'm David Staples of the Edmonton Journal. And I'm here today with my friend Bruce McCurdy, who was just fixing his hair there.
It always looks so good, David. I got to do the Carrie Fraser thing, to spiff everything up.
Or the Elliot Friedman from last Saturday on Hockey Night in Canada.
Whatever that was.
Yeah.
I think it was being attacked by a raccoon or something.
At least he's got hair. All right. Bruce, a zilch of a deadline day for the Edmonton Oilers. If you want to be charitable, you'll say they had their deadline day a week ago when they traded Calvert away and they traded Spooner for Gagne. Two deals that seem okay. The Oilers did nothing, and I'm disappointed, Bruce. I thought it would have been good to move out Chiasson for a draft pick. Would have been good to move Petrovic. Get any it just shows what a terrible trade the Petrovic trade. They were just, why not give him away for? They couldn't get any pick for Petrovic. Nothing. He has zero value. I guess so.
That seems strange to me too.
And Matt Benning.
I'm not disappointed they kept Benning.
I'm not disappointed they kept Benning. So Bruce, we'll go down the list of players and we'll talk about all of them. The big rumor heading into today was the Oilers were trying to move Puljujarvi, but they were attaching Milan Lucic's contract. And that I heard that from a few different sources, but Larry Brooks of the New York Post had it in his column. He wrote, Jesse Puljujarvi is on injured reserve with a lower body injury that may cost him significant time. So he is not likely to be done by Monday. But the 2016 fourth overall pick winger wouldn't have been on the move anyway, not with Oilers interim GM insisting that interested parties also be willing to pick up the final 4 years of Milan Lucic's annual deal at an annual $6 million cap hit. So what do you make of that? That Gretzky was working overtime to get rid of that Lucic contract and maybe moving Puljujarvi as a pretty big sweetener there.
Well, yeah. I mean, maybe that's the kind of trade that you make with Ottawa in the sense that they're looking for the cap floor. And if they can get a good young player like Puljujarvi, I mean, they need a little bit of cap hit. And the fact that in Lucic's case, he's actually ahead of the curve. So the out-of-pocket expense, which is what seems to be what Eugene Melnick cares about the most, is a little bit reduced than his cap hit. So a trade with a team like that is struggling to meet the floor, and Ottawa certainly is now that they've moved, holy crow, they moved Erik Karlsson, remember, and in recent days they've moved all three of their pending other unrestricteds in Mark Stone, the big deal, but also Ryan Zingle and Matt Duchene. And just for the cherry on top, Ottawa, of course, has already traded what looks to be the likely first or second overall pick in this year's draft in the pursuit to get Matt Duchene 2 years ago. So,
well, look at their salary cap for next year, Bruce. They have the NHL average salary is about what, 3.1? Is it?
Somewhere in that range. It's actually a little more now. At the cap hits up over 80. You're pushing $3.5 million for a 23-man roster.
Okay, let's say it's that. The for next season, the Senators have two players signed more than that. Bobby Ryan at $7.25 million and Mikhail Bodker at $4 million. So yeah, they have Craig Anderson next year as well at 4.75. So they have three players, and they have a projected cap hit next year of right now $44 million.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to bring in salary there. So that's
the kind of trade you target, and then you would have to sweeten the pot with a young player that's attractive to them. I mean, there's got to be something in it for the other guys. I mean,
does Lucic agree to go there? Is the problem, Bruce?
Well,
is the other thing? I mean, is he going to say no? I'll just stay in Edmonton. Now he might want out of Edmonton. He just might want to go start over.
Yeah.
Less heat, but he might not want to go to Ottawa.
Well, or maybe he goes to Ottawa. How about this? Try this on for size. He goes to Ottawa. Ottawa retains half his salary cap, sends him on to Boston, or wherever.
Yeah.
And now they've got the half of his salary cap that they can apply to get to the floor. And they're still saving some real dollars. And Lucic at $3 million, maybe some team's interested in him. At $6 million, not even a hope.
Good thinking, Bruce. You should be an assistant GM.
Well, I'm just an outside logician, but sometimes there are things that make logical sense. And in the world of the NHL, where 1 + 1 = 3, as we've seen in the standings, sometimes the objectives of two teams dealing with the salary cap are at polar opposites. One trying to stay under the ceiling, the other trying to get up to the floor. So you see sometimes some unusual transactions. Seen Arizona take on a few nasty contracts where the player isn't even playing anymore, but it's a way for them of acquiring other assets.
All right, so the Oilers, the players that were hoping to see move today, like Alex Chiasson, Alex Petrovic, Tobias Reeder, Kyle Brodziak, Brandon Manning, of course. None of them got moved. Chiasson, I mean, he's having a good year. He hasn't scored in more than almost, 2 months now, more than a month. In Petrovic, Bruce, that's the worst one. They traded a third round
I agree.
pick for Petrovic.
I wanted anything for Petrovic.
He's a UFA. They're not playing him. They couldn't get anything for Petrovic. That is just.
They could even have retained half of his contract. And if they got, say, a 4th round pick for him, I mean, that's cutting their losses at least, because basically they traded effectively a 3rd and a 6th rounder for him, given that Chris Weidman originally cost them a 6th rounder, and then they traded him plus the 3rd rounder to get Petrovic. So, and Petrovic has made very little useful contribution as an Oiler. Might be, an ideal depth player for some team. You retain some of his contract. Like, I thought that really might happen, but in the end, I mean, he'll be a free agent this summer. I don't imagine the Oilers will be pursuing him, and they'll wind up basically having pissed away a 3rd round plus a 6th round pick.
What a terrible trade.
That's the 3rd worst trade of the year, David. I'd rank both of the Manning and Spooner trades as being worse. The Spooner in trade. The Spooner out trade after.
I don't know. The Petrovic trade may, a 3rd pick. Depends what you think of Kajula. I was not a Kajula fan. I know a lot of people like Kajula more than I did, but I'm not a fan. I just thought it was time to move on.
I'm a bigger fan of Kajula than I am of Manning. And
that's cool. Yes, I will say that. Manning is a horrible acquisition. Anyway, I don't know why they couldn't get anything for Petrovic, like even I guess we know why, because teams don't think they can win with Alex Petrovic, and perhaps they're correct. I mean, that's what we've seen at Edmonton, that he can't really help an NHL team.
Well, if you're planning to play 4 rounds of playoffs, and he's your 4th best right defenseman, at least you got a guy that's got some experience that you can put in. It's not ideal, but it's a different plan for a playoff team. Whereas, I just don't see the Oilers making the playoffs, so needing him really in that capacity.
The one hot name on deadline day for the Oilers seemed to be Zack Kassian, Bruce. Mm-hmm. And Brian Burke, Nick Kyprios, and Kelly Hrudey were having a conversation about Zack Kassian, and they all agreed that there's a player that a team like Toronto might want. Burke mentioned that. He doesn't think Toronto Maple Leafs are tough enough. And, Kelly Hrudey, I thought, had the best line there. He said, and he's under $2 million. So I think that price is really attractive for a guy that offers what he does. And Hrudey was exactly right, but that's why the Oilers didn't move him. I mean, I just think, who could the Oilers get next year on the wing? This is a team that doesn't have many NHL wingers. Who can they get next year for $2 million? I mean, they tried last year to get players in. The best they could do for $2 million is Tobias Reeder.
Yep.
And he's got 0 goals.
Yep.
You can't get, I don't know what it would have taken to get Kassian off the Oilers, but like a 2nd round pick, I wouldn't have taken a 2nd round pick personally for Zack Kassian, because the Oilers they want to win next, they want to make the playoffs next year. That's a reasonable expectation when you have McDavid and Draisaitl. How can you move Kassian for a draft pick? I just don't, I wouldn't, unless it's a first.
to
or
free
a
up
second and a prospect. But free up cap space for what?
Yeah.
Like who are you going to get better value than Kassian for the $2 million? I don't.
You're going to get Josh Curry at 675,000 and Jujar Kara at 1.0 million. I don't know. I mean, you have to find economies somewhere. So that was the rationale for trading him. And same as with Benning. You know, do you want to trade him and hope you can replace him with as good a player for less?
I was much more open to Benning because the Oilers have much better depth on defense. They have William Lagesson. They have Caleb Jones. Like, move Benning. I would have been – I like Matt Benning on the bottom pairing.
Yep.
But you have Lagesson. He's 20 – what was he, 23 next year or 23 this year? He's good to go. Caleb Jones is ready for the NHL. You've got to – it was actually disappointing they didn't move Benning for me, Bruce, because you have these players. You got to make space. You do have cap issues. There's where you find it. On the wing, there isn't a lot of candidates. Zack Kassian is a candidate to play on your third line. He definitely is. There's not a lot of candidates for your top three lines on the wing with the Oilers. So, yeah, Benning, yes, move the guy. And disappointing that didn't happen. But Kassian, I'm glad that they didn't pull the trigger there. I just think they're going to have a hard time finding people on the wing this year, just like they did last year. And
let's flip that around, though. You've got Alex Chiasson, who was definitely a candidate to be traded today. And of course, two big differences between him and Kassian. One is that he's at NHL minimum, 1/3 of the salary. But second, and more important, that he's an unrestricted free agent at the end of the season. So, but he was a big bargain player for the Oilers. I'd argue he's a bargain now, even not scoring any goals with all the ice time and different stuff he's doing and good on the power play. I think they might extend him, and I think if they traded him, that chance goes away. And I think they might extend him, hopefully for reasonable. I mean, this is where Chiarelli would kill him and give him.
You know, I don't really like
and AAV, but he's a NHLer. I think it's fair to say, and you can count on him to probably score 10 goals for you in a depth role. Don't pay him for more than that.
Okay, Bruce, if they pay him to score 10 goals and that's all they give him, if they give him $1 million or $1.2 million,
that's what I'm saying.
For a year, then I'm okay with Chiasson. I'm just worried they're going to overpay him. We've seen his value. At least they know his value today.
I'm less worried than I would be if Peter Chiarelli was still there. But because I think they're now coming to grips with the fact that they need to find NHL wingers and they can't afford to pay them sun, moon, and stars. But in Alex Chiasson, that was one gamble they made that paid off. Certainly deserves a raise. But I would not offer him any more than the $1.075 million that can be fully buried in the AHL. That's where I'd be setting my line on a lot of offers. But I think there's a reasonable chance that they'll sign him maybe 2 years. But
see, I don't really like him as a player. Like, honestly, I don't. I think he's slow, and I think he leaks scoring chances against defensively. I don't think he's a strong defensive hockey player. He can't keep up with McDavid. I don't want to overstate how much I don't like. I think he's okay. I'm okay if they sign him. I don't want to see him on a 2-year deal, though.
Yeah, okay. Well,
sign him for 1 year, and with whatever money, figure out what other transactions you're gonna make on wingers, and whatever you have left, give the Chiasson. Like, he's not your top priority for signing. We'll see. I saw someone make the point today on the internet that if Bakersfield goes on a run in the playoffs, let's see how Cooper Marody's stock goes up. Oh, it was Jonathan Willis. Jonathan was saying that. If they can go on a run, I think it was Jonathan. Let's see, Cooper Marody should be looked at as your third line center for next year on the Edmonton Oilers. He's going to be cheap. He's 22. He's getting a point a game in the AHL. He's on the best team in the AHL right now. Why? I don't know why we're kind of underselling a player like him as someone who should be expected to come in and, like, listen, their other options aren't going to be great is the other thing. I mean, if you can do better, I'm not saying, but let's I don't think the future of the team is Alex Chiasson. It's younger players like Marody, Benson, Lagesson, Jones. These players have to step up, and there has to be room for them to step up onto the roster. And if you fill your roster with players like Kyle Brodziak and Chiasson to some extent, then you're not, and Ratty, then you don't have a room for Jesse Puljujarvi to get ice time. I mean, this is what the Oilers have been doing in recent years. Is not if they have a young player, they're not playing them. They're playing these older vets, and I'm not a big fan of it. I'm not thrilled with it.
Right. Well, Ratty, I mean, he's an example of what I'm suggesting they might do with Chiasson. And they re-signed Ratty for 1 year. They gave him a raise from 700,000 to 800,000 based on a short end of the season run. But his salary is low enough that they could bury it in the minors. And in fact, they did cut him and waive him at one point this season. So they had that flexibility. Where that one fell short was he didn't take the next step like many of us were hoping that he would.
Yeah.
But I mean, Chiasson could be next year's Ratty.
The latest vet to come in is Sam Gagner, right? So now I know you don't want to rush young players, but on the other hand, scoring wingers, they don't take a long time to develop in the AHL. They're usually there for about a year.
What's Russian?
You have Benson and Yamamoto.
Mm-hmm.
So they should be, if they're going to be NHL players, yeah, Benson should be ready to push next year. So is Sam Gagner going to block his way? Or is Benson going to have a real shot at it here? Now, I'm not against having some of these guys, but I just think there has been a little bit of a trend that I'm not liking in this regard, to go with these kind of marginal veterans.
Well, the trouble is I got so many veterans. I mean, the Oilers' entire roster now, the 23-man roster, there's not a single player on it that's on his entry-level contract. The only one they had was Jesse Puljujarvi, and he's on injured reserve now. So they got no active players, not one, on the Edmonton Oilers that has it's on his entry-level contract. They got no young players. 23 is about as young as it gets. And in the minors, you have this layer bubbling under. And I've heard some people say, well, leave him down there to develop. And yeah, that's true. But how long do you have to leave him down there? Certainly not the entirety of their ELC.
Caleb Jones will be there 2 years by the end of this year. He's ready for the NHL. They've got to clear the space for him. And that means, and I know you like betting, and I like betting okay too, but I mean, or Russell, move Russell if you could.
I hear you too. That was a trade that might have happened today, but unlikely, and obviously it didn't. So
maybe Russell will go this summer. I know his full no movement clause ends after this July. It's July 1st. I think they can trade him to a list of teams, if I'm not mistaken, on Chris Russell.
Right.
So Bruce, what would you say? Let's just wrap it up here. Pass, fail, okay, bad, good for this trading deadline for the Oilers.
A marginal pass for the early work. I didn't hate the Talbot for Stolar's trade because I had to do something to make room for Sekera, who's already made a big difference since he's been back. And the Gagner for Spooner trade is shaping up as a win, possibly a win for both teams, but certainly from an Oilers perspective, Sam Gagner is bringing him something that Ryan Spooner was not. And he's expensive, but so was Spooner. Like, they didn't lose in the financial end of that transaction. I think they got a more useful player who clearly is a better fit here, probably on a couple of levels. So to me, that's a win. And the Talbot for Stolar's trade, they already made their bed with Koskinen, and now they're actually giving him a run of games and seeing what he's got. And so this is a possible good thing. Otherwise, what happened today, the inability to move along from especially guys like Petrovich, would have been nice to somehow get Manning out of here. But so today is disappointing. Overall, I give it a bare pass. They didn't do anything stupid. That's always worth a lot.
Yeah, I think stupid would have been trading Puljujarvi. I'd like to see a new GM and a new coach get another chance with that player and work with the agent, work with the player, and hopefully that they can mend that bridge. So I agree. That would have been a total failure. Deadline day I think is a fail, but I'm before then I give him a B. Like, the move, getting Talbot out as they did, was a really good move to create the cap space, and his time was done here.
He's the number 3 goalie in Philly. I don't know what the Flyers are thinking.
And Gagner, his his offensive hockey IQ is fun to see. Like, he's a smart hockey player on the offensive end of the ice, and maybe he's learned a thing or two on defense now. So if Sam Gagner, I mean, he's looked like an NHL player. Like, he's looked good, and it's nice to see Sam Gagner back with the Oilers. I have to admit, like, I'm getting a charge out of that.
I'm enjoying it
So
also, and he's pumped. He's playing well. He's really engaging and winning battles, and he's always going to be a poorish skater and so at best defensive player, but he does have strengths, and we've been seeing those. Whereas with Spooner, we saw nothing.
yeah, in retrospect, Spooner, he was a player who needs the puck to create. And so the idea of probably teaming him with Draisaitl, McDavid, or Nuge, three other players who really love that puck.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Gagner is someone who doesn't actually need the puck. He's more like an Eberle kind of player. He just, passes it off, give and go kind of player, and he seems to fit in quite well with these other players. So who knows? Maybe Sam Gagner could be a big surprise story for the Oilers. He's certainly a smart offensive player. He's a right-handed shot, and he's a good shot. So, yeah, I would say Gretzky did well on those first two deals, and today's a disappointment. It's hard. Just let's leave it there. I've ranted on long enough.
All right. Well, we'll be doing another podcast after the Nashville game tonight. Now, I'm interested to see if either of their two big acquisitions today, Michael Granlund or Wayne Simmons, is in the lineup for them, because that's going to change the game a little bit. And at this moment, I'm not sure what they gave up for Simmons, but I know Kevin Fiala went for Granlund, so he's out of the Nashville lineup. They may actually be playing a bit short-handed tonight because of the trades they made today. So,
well, both those guys are getting in their sports cars and putting the pedal to the metal right now, Bruce, and they're on their way.
They're doing the Sam Gagner drive-in from Toronto business, right?
Yeah, they're going, man. They are going.
They rent a car.
They must be thrilled. Both of them must be thrilled. Those were two excellent deals, I thought, by the Nashville Predators to load up. And yeah, I don't know about Ottawa's deal with you'd think you could get more from Mark Stone. I mean, my goodness. But from an Oilers perspective, Mark Stone, it sounds like he's signing for more than $9 million per, Bruce.
8 years, 9.5.
Wow. This Leon Draisaitl contract.
He's a great player.
Yeah, but this Leon Draisaitl contract, Bruce, looking better every day. That's all I'm saying.
I'm sanguine about it. Have been for a while. I think that contract is going to be full value, and probably then some. We're in
all right.
2, and the guy's on pace for close to 50 goals.
Thanks for talking, Bruce.
Yeah, talk to you later tonight, David. Thanks for listening, everyone.
And in the meantime, and in between times, this has been another edition of the Cult of Hockey podcast.